So thanks for being here. People are coming in pretty fast. We have a lot of questions to go over. People sent in like over 100 questions, but a lot of them were, repeat questions. So we got it concentrated down to about 20 of the most important questions. Uh, they'll allow me to address most of the things that I would speak to anyways if I was just going to come on here and just, speak the way I typically do. So I think it's a good way to handle it. And I will start right now just going through the questions. Um, yeah, I could say more, but I think that I'm going to answer everything in the questions anyway. So let me just start there. And try not to get distracted by Bitcoin that is pumping. Okay. So, what are the plans to get the drip out of the wallets and basically out of circulation? So, one thing to consider when you look at the drip right now that are currently not in contracts, there is not a single person that holds more than 0.7% of the drip supply. This is important because it just really displays the fact that the core mechanics of drip are working, continue to work, and are very strong. So even though there's whales in drip, even though there's auto compounding in drip, even though some portion of the investors in drip are migrating over to animal farm because they know that animal farm is the newest thing to launch, so there's probably some sort of opportunity there, and people like to get into whatever the new thing is. Even with this stuff going on and peak bear market and all of that, and the auto compounding mechanic, or not auto compounding, but the compounding mechanic in drip, even with all of this, no one has more than 0.7% of the supply in circulation. And this is very important, and it just speaks to the strength of drip. Because if you look at any other kind of contract that has aggressive daily ROI with unlimited compounding, you see a major concentration of the tokens in a handful of wallets. And those are the people that got in first and the people that are insiders or dev teams, founders, friends of the devs, all of that. And we don't see that in drip, and that's very important. Now, plans to get drip out of the circulating supply are multifold. One of them is adding new utility to drip. So we have multiple products that we want to launch for drip that I can speak to a little bit here, but I don't want to go too much into detail because we want to develop them and put them on market first without giving away what they will be. But that is only one part of it. Another part is making it easier for people who are claiming drip to get their capital back into products and opportunities that allow them to take advantage of that drip to earn yield rather than selling it. And we have a few ideas that will allow for this, and they will be implemented. It's just a matter of executing on that. And then there is marketing and the UI, which will obviously help from an onboarding perspective, but also building confidence among holders and having them keep their capital in contracts longer and in more volume than removing them and holding them in wallets, right? So it's kind of a multifold, set of ways that we can do this. But I don't want to really get hung up on this question because I can go into what all of the things that I just touched on in more detail in the following questions, and I don't want to be repeating myself. But just one thing that I wouldn't get to in the other questions specific to tokens in wallets that I do want to address in this question is the fact that we have a great distribution of holders and a a very strong diversification among wallets and a lack of concentration at the top, which is great and it's important. And of course, we know we're in peak bear market. Like this is expected, right? It's expected that we would be in this kind of bear market. I was saying all the way from like 2000, maybe 2017 on the run. Basically, as soon as I bought back into Bitcoin at $4,000, I was saying that the likely next top would be between 6,000 and 65,000, 70,000, somewhere around there, because of the just that cycle that we go through where previous highs are at least 3x the former all-time high. So ever since Bitcoin price was at $4,000, I was saying that 60,000 was a great place to start taking profit and to start removing risk, because from that point on, we're likely to see a correction. And when we have these corrections in crypto, and when we talk about Bitcoin in general, it's usually a 80 to 90% correction. But then the next all-time high is at least 3x the following all-time high, which means 15 to 20x move from the bottom. So it's just a major opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity. As long as you're not over leveraged and you're DCAing in, like once you get that 70% correction, start DCAing in and not over leveraging yourself, it just becomes a major opportunity. And we need these cycles to bring in new users and to allow for people to to onboard in a significant way. And we don't I don't think that these cycles will continue like this forever, right? We're still in the early days, and a large part of these corrections are just due to the fact that we've seen greater growth than any other sector, any other market. So when you're doing, whatever Bitcoin did in the last move, or if you talk about like ETH, right, 20x, 50x, BNB did even more, I believe. When you're doing these kinds of moves and you're having this much upside, of course you're going to have a correlated correction. So the correction is also going to be significant because that's just the way that markets move. And drip is not completely removed from these cycles. So now is an amazing opportunity, just like it's an amazing opportunity in Bitcoin and all of these other assets. And we go through these cycles just like any other asset to allow for new users to come in. So, really the main thing I just wanted to say about this is the distribution of the tokens in wallets, because I think that's important when you're considering the amount of tokens that are in wallets. All right. Okay. Do I plan to add incentive for the reservoir? And is it possible to basically automate the way that drip go into the reservoir from the faucet? So people that are earning drip in the faucet, could we make it so those drip automatically go into the reservoir? And the answer to this is it's complicated, and I don't think that's the best way to do it. So the reservoir is a B&B staking contract. So in order to enter the reservoir, you're entering in with B&B. Now, in order to allow for an automated system where drip earned in the faucet automatically gets staked in the reservoir, it would require either a full rework of the reservoir, which is not possible at this point, right? We don't want to completely change all of the mechanics of the reservoir, or it would take selling drip to make B&B, in which case that B&B would then be deposited into the reservoir. Half of it would be used to buy the drip, and the other half would be used to add liquidity. And if this is the case, then that value is not leaving drip, but it's being split up between the buy and sell of the side of the order book, which would cause price depreciation. So the value wouldn't leave, but the price would be depreciating. And this is something that people, I don't think, have a good grasp on. The way that you can have an asset increase in price, but not increase in value. And you can have a product decrease in price, but not decrease in value. And of course, there's different ways to look at value, but I'm speaking specifically from a like a dollar value. And the reason why is because if that value is going into the liquidity pool from the single asset side into the paired liquidity side, you still have all of that USD value in the liquidity pool. It's just distributed in a different way that can either cause price appreciation or depreciation. And price appreciation is important. It's something I learned from, of course, I always knew this, but I've learned ways to allow for price appreciation while paying out yield in ways that were not ever done before, which I've implemented into Animal Farm, which did not exist before we developed Animal Farm. And there are, two or three strong ways to pay out yield. And one of them is through price appreciation. One of them is through paying out yield in the native asset, right? And then there are a couple other which were implemented in Animal Farm, which I think are the best ways to do it. But having it basically selling drip to then add liquidity to drip, even though that keeps the same value in drip, it causes price depreciation, and that would not be good, right? Because the average person that is just looking at the price chart, they're not taking into account how much yield has been earned. And drip has paid out more yield than any other project in DeFi. And when you consider the amount of yield that we paid out, and factor in the price, and the price moves, we've outperformed most, if not all, of other DeFi projects in the space, because auto compounding allows you to earn over 3,000x. It's close to 4,000x by the end of the year. And of course, the price has not gone up or gone down 4,000x. So by the yield that we paid out alone, we've significantly outperformed a lot of projects, but that is not that yield is not coming in the form of price appreciation. And you want yield to some degree to come in the form of price appreciation. And having a mechanic that would be automatically selling drip and using it to add liquidity, even though it would maintain the same value in the liquidity pool, it would cause price depreciation. So we want to stay away from that. And we also don't want to completely change the reservoir contract, because the reservoir contract works. This is one thing that I committed to at the launch of Drip, that the core mechanics of our core contracts will never change. And I made this commitment, and the reason why I made this commitment is twofold. One, because these are contracts where your principal is being locked. And we can't have contracts where your principal is being locked and then we change the rules after you've locked your principal. So for that reason, we will never change any of the core mechanics of Drip. And then secondly, there were so many other projects out there, and there have been so many other products out there that were good. They worked, through price cycles, prices up, prices down, they work, and they continue to pay out yield. But then the developers, for whatever reason, they get greedy, or some of them have good intentions, but they just, they can't take being in a bear cycle, and they can't take the price being down. So they try to make some change to make the price go up, and it ends up just ruining the system, either outright breaking the system, allowing for some exploits, just changing the game theory. If you have a system where people are getting their principal locked up, and then you change the rules of the system after that, it makes everybody who would consider locking up their principal lose confidence, knowing that there's a chance that they could lock their principal under these terms, and then the terms could change after the fact. So I made this commitment that we would never change the core mechanics of Drip. We will add additional layers on top of these contracts to add additional options, but the core mechanics will never change. So this is why we're not going to restructure the whole faucet or restructure the whole reservoir to allow for this kind of thing, But what is possible is a mechanic that allows people to claim their drip from the faucet tax-free if they are then putting that drip into the farm, into the drip BUSD farm on Animal Farm. This is something that I believe we can do. And it is going to be significant work, right? Because there's a lot of technical implications behind it. But I think that's something that we can do. And what this does is it allows, there's an extra step when it comes to taking drip out of the faucet and adding it to the farm, that will result in an additional tax being paid. And we can reduce one of those additional taxes by making it so withdrawing from the faucet is tax-free, as long as you're being essentially forced, paired, and staked into the farm. And this way, people, and the reason why we can do this with the farm and not the reservoir is because the farm allows for LP staking. So there isn't a need to sell drip, right? People would just have to send BUSD to the contract. The contract would then claim their drip from the faucet, pair it, and stake it in the farm, tax-free. It would do all of this tax-free. And then people would pay the tax when they unpaired and when they sold. But there wouldn't be that additional tax on withdrawing from the faucet. And this would encourage people to use their drip to add liquidity and get into the farm, and remove one of the barriers that prevent them from doing that. That is something that we can do, and that is something that I want to do, and that we will be working on. I just got out of a dev